I'm going to read a piece by David Schwartz. Who is freedom for? The colonists came seeking freedom, and in that we identify with them. But it was freedom only for themselves. In every generation forward, from that day to this, the people living in this land that became America struggled always with the question, who is freedom for? Before and after the war for independence, the war we celebrate as the birth of a nation, indigenous people were massacred. Black persons were taken from their native Africa to become slaves. Immigration laws were written explicitly to prohibit non-Western Europeans. Women could not vote. Refugees knock, and in response, voices call to bar the door. Where is justice? The Universalist minister Clarence Skinner wrote a century ago, "The fight for freedom is never won. Each generation must win for itself the right to emancipate itself from its own tyrannies, which are ever unprecedented. Therefore, those who have been reared in freedom bear a tremendous responsibility to the world to win an ever larger and more important liberty. So may it be for us. We are the inheritors of our liberty, won with sweat and labor and blood of generations before us. May we be a people committed to winning an ever larger liberty for the generations that follow. Who is freedom for? May we answer today and always, every one of us. Thank you all for being here with us this morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Manhattan, Kansas. Whoever you are and whomever you love, you are welcome here. Unitarian Universalism strives to embrace all in a loving, caring, inclusive community, to be a safe haven and a force for social justice. We've made a deal to keep trying to create a world that is diverse, joyous, and just. We have no required creed. We believe in the ideal that each person finds their own path, their own spiritual journey toward peace, justice, and freedom. I'd like to bring your attention to the program this morning and the announcements inside there. There are a couple of changes. From the Guardians, we'll be joined by Bill Wolf. And to close the service, I think we're going to have a discussion. We called it a talk back. So we'll be passing the microphone around and hope everyone will share what's on their heart. We make time now to acknowledge the land upon which we gather, the people who lived interdependently with this land before our arrival, and their descendants unwillingly dispersed elsewhere. The Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Manhattan holds this land within a context of ongoing settler colonialism and the dispossession of indigenous peoples and nations from their lands. May we witness these truths, which are so consistently hidden and ignored. We will now light the chalice. I'd like to read a piece from The Offering on a Difficult Morning by Elena Westbrook. Far too often, we are forced to confront the terrible things that people can do to each other. When these things happen, all we can do is come together in places like this sanctuary to remind ourselves that there is still hope. There is still love. There are still good-hearted people who can look unblinking into the storm and continue to believe a calm, bright morning will come. This community is a refuge where we can keep the ember of hope alive when all the world seems intent on dousing it. And then we can use our little ember to light a beacon for the rest of the world.
I got a brother living out nowhere, doing what he likes to do. People making rules, but my brother, he don't care. He's a rebel through and through. The man wants nothing but freedom. Nothing but freedom. My other brother wanna change the world, and naturally he's always right. Marching around with his mouth unfurled, itching for a straight up fight. He says it's all about justice. All about justice. Well, let me tell you what, nothing but freedom means nothing but freedom. All about justice makes it all about justice. Freedom only wants to have its own way, and justice says you've got to do what I say. And neither brother's bound to budge, and so they duke it out every blessed day. That's how they threw away freedom and justice. And justice and freedom, both stubborn as a mischief, vinegar and piss, not listening to anything of foolish pride. Them fellas are mistaken if they think they'll cross a lake by paddling the boat to just one side. And nothing but freedom means nothing but freedom. And all about justice makes it all about justice. Freedom says it's all about me and mine, and justice never cares to even ask why. They can stand there touching noses for a week, they'll never see eye to eye. That's how they crucify freedom and justice. Justice and freedom. Freedom and justice. Justice and freedom. I got a brother living out nowhere, doing what he likes to do. I'm just like that man, and I swear I'm just like his brother too.
And now we're going to have the time for all ages. Would the children like to come up and listen with Sandy?
Does this thing work?
Oh, I see several children.
Good morning, my goodness, look at all of you. One of the things that we've been talking about, oh, you guys can come closer if you want. If you like sitting on that step, that's cool too. Good morning, my name is Sandy Nelson, and excuse me. Sarah asked me to help with the Time for All Ages, which is something I very much enjoy. And she mentioned that it was going to be about freedom, more or less. And so I did what I always do. I Googled children's stories about freedom. And I'm a fraud. I came across, because of that, I came across this book. And it is called Dictionary for a Better World. Just a sec. Poems, quotes, and anecdotes from A to Z. Yes, Carl? You like looking at the pictures? Okay, the pictures are going to be awesome. That's really awesome. The pictures are going to be just right here in the book today. They're not going to be up there on the screen today. That's the way I'm doing it today. You know what? Technology sometimes is different than just right here. So you guys can look at yourselves, though, if you want to turn around and look at yourselves. Shall we wave? That's awesome. What if you wave the other direction? What happens that way? Yeah, man. Oh, look, we can have them. Wait a minute, but I can't see them. Boy, this is really confusing. So it turns out freedom is kind of confusing. This cool book is essentially an ABC book. And see, that's just, it has the word acceptance and ally and belonging and compass. So it's A is for this and B is for that and C is for this. That's my really cool bookmark. Do you want to check out my bookmark? Go ahead and take it. You can take it if you want to. I use that as a bookmark. This is the way class goes all the time, in case anyone was curious. So in the RE classes, the last few weeks, we've been talking about blessings. What's a blessing and what is a blessing and what do we do for blessings, and at school too. And one of the things we talked about was what we do at the supper table. So when I found this book and read through it and found the word freedom, we can talk about that when we go back to class. Well, I found the word freedom in this book, and I read the page about freedom. This book is full of poems and essays and quotes and ideas. The essay talks about what somebody used to do at the supper table when they were a kid, and it was about freedom. So I thought, oh my gosh, this is perfect. We can use this in class. So I'm going to read this. Are there any pictures to look at? Not on this page. Let's see if there's one on a different page. There's a picture. ABCs. Okay, we're going to read this. Freedom. Up in the air and over the wall, I go barefooted. The leaves, frost crisped, break from the trees, dizzy. The dark smells sweet like honey and full of fire like ginger. In my head, I hear a humming, time to begin. Now you can listen to those words and think about freedom the way you want to think about freedom. And that's cool. So the author says about freedom, actually she uses a quote here first, where freedom is, there shall be my country. That's a Latin proverb. And another quote at the beginning of this book, which made me think this is a pretty awesome book, is, if all you can do is crawl, start crawling. And another one, it is in your hands to create a better world for all who live in it. That was a Nelson Mandela quote. I'm going to read this one passage, and then we're going to have a little comment, and then we'll get to go back to our classes and talk all about what we brought today, okay? This is a short couple of sentence essay from the author. One of my most vivid memories of my family's tradition of supper time discussions centers on this question. Okay, you guys ready? We're going to talk about this question later. Which is more important to you? Money, freedom, love, fame, health, or religion? My initial response was love, because isn't that the heart of living? My father might have said health. My brother, money. There's pictures of leaves. But what we decided was that none of it means anything without freedom. Freedom supersedes all. For what good is love if you are not free to express it? Money is worthless unless you are free to spend it as you like. Fame, health, religion, what makes them valuable and precious is the freedom to experience them in your own way, which is why I am acutely aware of my privilege of being born in a free country and why my heart aches for those who were not. I honor those, such as refugees fleeing persecution, war, or violence, who are willing to risk all for freedom. And I am so grateful to all those who came before me, like suffragettes, who paved the way for me to enjoy the freedoms I do have. So that's what this book is. It's poems, quotes, essays, and then there's a try it, which we're going to talk about when we leave, and which all the adults can think about as they're listening to music and participating in this service. The try it idea, which might be a clue to what's in the mystery box back in the classroom. Choose a specific freedom you appreciate. Research current and historical events to better understand, empathize, and acknowledge the people who helped secure this freedom for you. How have you benefited from the work and struggle of others? Love the orange shoes, guys. What do you say we go? Are you ready?
Now it's time for the offering here at UUFM. The offering we receive on Sunday morning goes to a special organization each month. This month, our Helping Hands recipient is the Guardians. You can donate online by going to uufm.net, then clicking the donate link and choosing the particular fund to which you want to contribute. If you're here in person, you can put your offering in the basket at the back. I'd also like to invite you to use this time to share your joys and sorrows this week. You can write on the paper that's in the back as well, and we'll pick those up, or type something in the chat and Linda will read those. If you're here in the sanctuary, we'll come and pick up your joys and sorrows. Now, the Guardians are our Helping Hands recipient, and Bill Wolf is with us this morning to tell us a little bit about the organization and its mission.
Thank you very much. I did warn you, I have 3 uncles who are pastors, so you want to give me 3 minutes, that's going to be tough. But I grew up in, they didn't have clocks in our churches, so, when they got done, they got done. So, but no, we thank you very much. The first part of service reminded me of my last 2 days because the grandkids showed up early and we've had technology issues. So you guys are right in line with the way our weekend's going. Well, happy 4th of July with grandkids and stuff. You notice they now give me some fancy socks, but I grew up in a very patriotic family. My wife's from Omega. So it's a wonderful weekend. Everybody comes home. In fact, I apologize. As soon as I'm done, we're heading out because we went to an early service so there'll be about 40 of those age kids to herd. So bless them back there. Tried to herd kids today. So you got to hear from Vern last year, I hear, and then Brad had to be out of town. So I am the vice chair of the Guardians Board. Hopefully you know a little bit about us. But I think to summarize, really, if you've heard of the Fairy Godmothers, our organization came pretty much after that. They help women in the community and we help men. And basically, I think if you wanted to summarize it, there's a lot of groups that provide day-to-day substance, but there's a lot of holes in where people can get help sometimes to keep them going. What I mean by that is what we try to do is make sure they either can get jobs or keep their jobs and do so in a comfortable environment. So if you go on our website, you could see there's a couple areas that really have been a traditional source of where we spend the money, and thank you for helping us out. We give away a lot of beds. There's just a lot of folks that are getting back into their own place, and I think you'd agree a good night's sleep is a great way to perform better at work and everything else. We also do a lot of work with vehicles, either repair. We do a lot of tires because they're very expensive. And by the way, while I get a minute, Beds for Less and Burgett Automotive give us huge discounts. So if you know somebody or you go there, tell them thank you, because we're pretty sure they discount us so much they don't make money on what they do for us, which is wonderful because we can help that many more people. If you're familiar with Be Able, that's a relatively newer group in town. And through them the last 2 years, we have found that some of these folks that are in transition have either lost or had their IDs and everything that tells who they are stolen. So it takes a lot of money if you've gone recently to get a new driver's license. So we have been able to donate, I think now we're up over 50 people that we have reissued their ability to get a job and to get help. And that's a tough burden. And then if they don't have a car to get there, we want to encourage them to be productive and to keep moving. So the good news is we have done a lot more fundraising. And this last year was our highest year. We were over 30,000 in grants. So again, we work through, and I'm going to try to get them all on here. Some of the groups: Shepherd's Crossing, Be Able, the Emergency Shelter, Salvation Army, Boys and Girls Club, CASA, Catholic Charities, Flint Hills Community Clinic, Home Care and Hospice, the Mental Health, Upani, and Thrive. These are groups that we work with to make sure that we are filling gaps instead of just repeating the same benefits, which I think is really nice. So that's kind of who we work through. So again, if you know somebody in those groups, tell them thank you, because those folks work very hard, and then we try to fill in the gaps sometimes. So this year we are already at 27 grants and given over 19,000, which up till 2 years ago would have been our largest year already. So COVID has really developed some more need, as you can well imagine. It got a little more challenging with work. And so we've done a lot of work on raising more dollars. So we're on pace to give away the most we've ever given, which again is mostly in the tires, beds, cars, and IDs and things like that a lot of us just take for granted, and they're not out there. And some clothes as well, but again, there's a couple other groups in town that are pretty strong in that area, so we don't usually go that direction as much. So if you want to go online, you can sure look through there. If you're a man, we'd love to have you on board. It doesn't mean you have to do anything. We hit the right check, isn't that it? You don't even have to do that, I'm teasing. But we have a board that is pretty active, just making sure everything goes on. And then we have a lot of committees. I was on the grant committee for a long time. And what's nice is basically, again, we don't share names. The board doesn't really know. It's just a couple people that really know the names. And then we make sure we vet, where they've been through. So we thank you guys so much. We were able to really get some great help. And what's really nice is our board is starting to pick up people that we have helped in past years that are moving on in society to the point where they could feel like they can give back. And we're starting to see those folks show up on our board, which is a very, very nice feeling. So I don't know if that's all I had. If anybody has questions, let me know, but I do apologize. I have to run right after this, or I will, the grandkids will disown me and not give me any more fancy socks next year. Thank you very much for what you give for us. We sure appreciate it.
I don't know if we had any joys and sorrows in the room. We have a joy from Jody Hendon. She says, finally passed calculus. Yay! That's a big deal. Big deal. Linda, do you have anything to share from Zoom?
I do. Lauren, and maybe Lynn too, I'm not sure, has a joy. He says, a joy is to witness the service today. It is so good to share this time with all of you. And Les Loschke has two joys to share. Our granddaughter, Amelie, had her 3rd birthday yesterday, and we will visit her in Boston in 2 weeks. And a pair of cardinals have built their nest on our back porch. It is great to see the male cardinal feeding the female cardinal who is on egg warming duty. It is showing family values. And that's it.
Oh, good. Thank you, Linda. It's very nice of us to have such joys. Please join me in a moment of silence as we honor the joys and sorrows that have been shared and those that remain quietly within our hearts. I'd now like to read for you a piece written by Jeffrey A. Lockwood titled Futility Refuted. Mr. Lockwood is an insect ecologist and writer, a professor of natural sciences and humanities at the University of Wyoming. An online columnist for UU World, he is a member of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Laramie, Wyoming. He wrote this in 2006. There is no such thing as a lasting peace, a tranquility that will persist forever, a final resting place for the lion and the lamb. We yearn for the completion of our task, the fulfillment of our striving, the consummation of our journey. And this longing sows the seeds of our defeat. We aspire to solve conflicts. We ache to be done with the hard work of life. We pine for the peace, for the day in which an everlasting peace prevails. In believing that the purpose of a peace movement lies in securing an outcome, in reaching an amicable conclusion, in attaining a serene world, we assure our own frustration, our own futility, and ultimately our own failure. The work of peacemaking will never be done. That is the curse and the blessing of being human. It's a curse in that there is no utopian culmination of our labors, a blessing in that we will always have meaningful work. The peacemaker is like Sisyphus, whom the gods condemned to an eternal life of shoving a boulder up a hill, only to see it roll back down again in an endless cycle of apparent futility. How could Sisyphus endure such a fate? I've asked my students, and their answers were revealing. Some students supposed that there is always hope, a hope that the gods will relent, that peace will finally come to Sisyphus and perhaps to us. A particularly creative student suggested that over time, the rolling of the boulder would erode the hill so that eventually the labor of Sisyphus would be complete. Maybe as we roll the boulder of peace in every generation, the hill of hate is worn down. But I believe that the most compelling answer comes from those students who understood that a sense of futility comes from the belief that we rightfully expect to see the fruit of our labors. We forget that virtue lies in the doing of good works, not in the completing of our task. Maybe Sisyphus will never recover the graces of the gods. Maybe the hill will never be worn down. But if we can authentically and deeply engage in our labors, if we roll the boulder of peace because it is what we are called to do, if the measure of our work is its capacity to shape who we are, we can go on pushing. And if in the course of our labors the hill of hate is eroded, that will be a beautiful thing, a very beautiful thing. But as much as we hope that peacemaking will replace warmongering, as much as we hope to live at a critical point in human history, as much as we dream of a glorious conversion of society, we must understand that while epiphanies may change souls, they rarely change the world. To know what we can do, to understand what the world needs of us, we must look into the eyes of the frightened soldier and the terrified child. But to sustain our work, we must look inside ourselves. There we shall find the understanding that the endless labor of life is not about changing the world, but about creating ourselves. We cannot make the world peaceful, but neither can the world make us hopeless. So you can tell today I was thinking about July 4th, the Day of Independence. When I first wrote the summary of what today would be about, I thought we would talk about freedom and civility and human rights a little bit. But something happened between the time that I wrote that and my first draft of my reflection, and it became apparent that I had to change what I was going to say. So I hope that this will make you think a little bit about what's going on. When I'm done here, we're going to have a talkback, a discussion that we used to have here at UUFM. We'll pass the microphone around, and I'd like you to share whatever on your heart or thoughts that you have. I'll begin. My life has been those 50 years while Sisyphus is leisurely walking back down the hill. No rock, vaccines and birth control, a white American, a free woman, blithely free. I'm lucky I was often painted a picture of the rock waiting at the bottom of the hill, that I one day would be called to soldier it on and on. The summer after I graduated college, I attended a march for women's reproductive rights in Washington, D.C. 33 years ago, almost to the day. Among hundreds of young men and women, I ran into a high school friend from Los Angeles. The world seemed small and the possibilities manageable. I believed then that I was blessed with freedom. I was free. Recently, I saw a woman my age on TV holding a familiar cardboard sign protesting the Supreme Court ruling. She was recorded saying, "What the frick am I doing here again?" It seems the rock is at the bottom of the hill. BIPOC people already knew what many women, especially white women, are just now up in arms about, with the seeming finality of state-led legal maneuvers. For the BIPOC community, forced pregnancy is not new. With the distance far and the expense high, reproductive care has always effectively been denied them. I hear them saying, "Welcome to our hell." There's a meme on the internet where a woman is saying, "We will be here to support women who supported the recent ruling." And another woman appears suddenly and says, "No, we won't." And again, a different woman says, "Nope, don't include me in that we." But would I? Will I be there? Will I be here for those I politely deem misguided and privately rage against? We are at war. The clock is striking 13. Theocratic fascism is what Frank Zappa called it, the Christian Reich. The freedom to tell people what to do and the freedom from being told what to do. I believe January 6th showed the world again that we Americans are a morally traumatized people. In Kansas, I do hear this low whisper that brings me hope. She says, "Does anyone else feel like they're going through a phase, starting to realize their whole life Maybe your whole personality has been shaped by white supremacy, misogyny, and patriarchy, and you're not sure how you can continue to live within the system and profit from the system and take privilege under the system, but also knowing that coming out of the system and doing the hard work that's there is going to alienate you from everyone you've ever known. Or is that just me? We've been doing this a long time as Unitarians, as believers in the sanctity of life and the purpose. A recent BBC headline reads, "The church that helped Jane Roe still aids abortion seekers." The First Unitarian Church of Dallas senior minister Daniel Cantor talks about his experience in driving young women 15 hours one way to New Mexico to obtain legal and safe health care. As Reverend Gretchen Haley said last week during the General Assembly service, Unitarians make a deal to keep trying. We also know that women did not get the right to vote by voting. And like Rage Against the Machine, I believe we see right through the red, white, and blue disguise. With lecture, I puncture the structure of lies. When did it click for you that we can take the power back? For me as a child, it was, sí, se puede, yes, it can. Every day now, I ask myself, can you, Sarah? What will you do? Like China, I could report the US to the UN for human rights violations. A teenager showed me how to do it online. I've heard talk of the need now to focus the protest on the elected district attorneys with the power to refuse to prosecute. As more officials declare they will not enforce their laws, I heard a lawyer talk about jury nullification, when a jury reaches a verdict that's contrary to the letter of the law because the jurors disagree with the law under which the defendant is prosecuted. I'm told this is improbable, a nearly impossible outcome, but it's hopeful. And I'll take whatever hope I can get right now. This taking it to the street is not for me these days. I'm not going to cosplay Handmaid's Tale. I'm also not going to appropriate taking a knee. That act belongs to the Black Lives Matter movement. One woman I heard suggested we turn our backs to the flag and ignore the anthem. I think I already do that sometimes. I'm very much compelled to find ways to resist, and today I wear black. Today I will intrude with my white privilege and disrupt the white spaces I exist in. By speaking up, engaging in debate with resistant, intemperate others who look like me, talk like me, and live next door. My aim is to ensure that my fellow palm-colored soldiers, we 8.5 by 11s, know that I know that they don't know yet that this will not stand. What are we going to do? What are you going to do? Let's have a talk back. I've been reminded that there's no one right way to feel and there's not one right way to respond. But respond, I think we must.